So the concept of anti-Semitism I only experienced when I started to make content online, but I never faced it in person in India.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the dossier with Talia and Revi. And today we are here with Revital Moses. She's amazing. We're in love with her. She's a Jew from India, and we've been trying to get Jewish people from around the world and different cultures so that you can really get to know us from wherever we are. And so I'm very excited to introduce Revital Moses. She's living in Israel. She's a total advocate. She's an influencer. I would call her an influencer online. And everyone loves to hear from her. So we're going to call her Revi because I'm Revi and she's Revi, and that's just funny. So good morning, Revi. Tell us what is going on right now.
Wow. So at the moment, before we went online or on record, I said, I'm trying to stay alive because that is the ultimate goal at the moment. But life never stops in the middle of the war, especially in Israel. Even when you have, when it's raining ballistic missiles, you're trying to get through your regular stuff, shop for groceries, try to get some sleep in the middle of the sirens. If you have kids, I don't have any kids, but I have friends who have kids who are trying to balance their work and also manage their kids. Well, life never stops, but also it I think in a way affects you emotionally and psychologically because there's only so much you can do. It's not in your control. You never know when this is going to stop because June of 2025, I think it was a 12-day war and it felt like forever. And now I think today is day 13 or 14. Sorry, I've lost track. But it feels like this has been going on for the longest time. Um, we want, we want, we definitely want peace in the Middle East, but I think in terms of like for myself, I'm scared at times, but I'm also hopeful that
How long
something
have
good.
you how long have you been in Israel?
About 6 years. Actually, last week was my Aliyah anniversary. Completed 6 years in Israel, moved with my
Mazel
family.
tov.
Thank you very much. Yeah, 6 years. Wow, how time flies.
Yeah,
What part of the country are you in, Revita?
I am in Tel Aviv. I'm a city girl. I grew up in a city called Mumbai. Actually, a city called Thane, which is very close to Mumbai. But I've always been a city girl, so I couldn't see myself living anywhere else in Israel but Tel Aviv. So I'm here.
that's so exciting. Oh, I'm excited. I'm going to be in Israel soon, and I'm so excited to be there. Tell us about, so I think what we're so excited to hear about is what is it like to be an Indian Jew in India?
Wow. Okay, so let me break this down for you because this has been my life since the day I was born, right? When you're Jewish in India, I think first of all, back in the day, people didn't know the Jews existed in India. Even Indians didn't know that because
Wow.
we're a small minority. Like if you're
Right.
talking about numbers, we're about less than 4,000 Jews, at
Oh,
least from
wow.
my community, the Ben Israel, out of the 1.4 billion in India. So it was impossible for all Indians to know that there were Jews in India, but only because of social media, people have started to know, oh my gosh, we have a minority that are Jews. And I grew up with a lot of love, acceptance, and curiosity. Because when I was growing up, people thought I was Christian because they couldn't really understand the difference between Christianity and Judaism.
Wow.
So my entire life was about educating and inviting my friends to, let's say, Hanukkah dinners and Shabbat dinners, and to give them to make them aware about where we come from.
But did you have a synagogue near you? Did you have, I mean,
Yes.
4,000 people is not a lot.
I mean, now it's 4,000. Back in the day, I mean, of course, I'm trying to think where I can take you to give you more context. So currently, I live in a city called Thane, which has one synagogue, and I lived about walking distance to the synagogue. And in Mumbai and in around Mumbai, there are about ten synagogues.
Oh, well, that's amazing.
And of course, there are a mix of like Baghdadi Jewish synagogues and Ben Israeli. Then if you go like down south to South India, if you've heard about a state called Kerala, You also have one of the oldest and the most beautiful synagogues, which is built by Indian Jews. It's called the Pardesi Synagogue. But again, it was impossible for people to know, oh, like, where do you guys come from? Who do you guys worship? Like, but if you're not from India, how do you still speak Indian languages? Stuff like that. It took a while for people to understand, but we are one of the most celebrated minorities in India, even today.
So I was in India last year, Ravi, and we traveled to Cochin and to Mumbai, and we always ask people, and obviously we went to the synagogue in Cochin, which is very famous, um, and Jewtown in Cochin, which is very famous, and there's now one Jew who still lives in Cochin, and we asked people that we met always the same question, which is what happened to India's Jews? And and we always got the same answer. And I'm wondering whether you might have a better answer. The answer we got was always like, I don't know, they just left,
Mm.
right? Like there was no catastrophe. There was nothing that pushed the Jews out. There was no expulsion. They just left. And they seem to think they just left for economic reasons. So I'm wondering, how would you answer that question? What happened to India's Jews?
So I'm going to give you some insight from the Indian Jewish perspective. I think as Indian Jews, it's always hard to leave India and come to Israel because India has always been home, never faced anti-Semitism or persecution. We we were seen as the community that sweetened the society and not we didn't overflow it. So we were very well accepted. But most Jews felt like it was time to, go back to our homeland that was Israel. So back in the 80s and 90s, there was an Aliyah wave from India. So communities all together, they came to Israel. They made Aliyah. They're like, it's about time. We weren't like I believe the Indian Jews weren't running away from anything. It was a calling. Like it's about time now that we return to Israel, and that's why most people leave. Of course, there are some families that felt like, oh, we have better opportunities in Israel because maybe the standard of living is better, and we want our kids to find a Jewish partner. Because, when you live in India, there is also like a challenge of assimilation. And I think parents are often concerned, oh, our kids are going to marry to the non-Jews and stuff like that. So I think there's also like they want to be able to continue the Jewish legacy. So those are also some reasons. If you ask about my family, uh, we might have different reasons. My parents decided to make Aliyah and I followed them, me and my sister. It was very hard for me to leave India because I'm like, why would you leave India and go to Israel? Like I came to Israel on Taglit Birthright program in 2016. I loved it, but I also hated it because I couldn't see myself living in Israel back at the time. But then my parents is also very Indian to, do things that your parents tell you to do. It's very like it's a cultural thing.
I think that's a
Um,
Jewish thing in general.
Everybody says that. Everybody says that when I say
Yeah.
that. But can you imagine? I have Indian Jewish parents. So it's double pressure,
Yeah.
double love, double of everything. So I was like, you know what? I will come. If I don't like it, I'm going back. But guess what? I'm still here. And also when we guys landed here, like it was COVID. It wasn't intentional to come during COVID, but our process got delayed. So we ended up 4 days before the first COVID lockdown, and I wanted to run away. I was like, the chutzpah, I just couldn't take it. It was too much for me. I'm also Indian, so I'm very polite and very like, and then you have Israelis screaming at your face, and like, it's like, whoa, like all of it all together. But I think eventually I got used to it, and I'm a little more Israeli now. And I felt like the decision that my parents took for the family was really good. Like I love the fact that I'm able to now have a community, have friends, have a job, and I'm able to be a bridge between India and Israel.
That's wonderful. I have a totally off-topic question because I
Sure.
think people are probably going to be very interested in the culture, in the cultural aspect of the Indian Jews and also how I think the history of it. I feel like that's really important so people could really understand. So my offbeat question is, What do you serve in India at your Shabbat dinner table?
Oh my gosh, great question. So of course we have challah, but we have an Indian version of the challah. We always have bread, which is called. Now, I come from a state called Maharashtra. So of course, the cuisine changes like every 1 kilometer. We talk about it. We joke about this all the time, but we always have bread. And in my household, in the Moses family, we've always my mother and my grandmother would always cook chicken curry or mutton curry. When I say mutton, it's goat meat. We don't eat beef in India, at least in my state. Um, so we would have curry and we would have rice, and then we would have challah, and then we would also have flatbread, which is you either probably heard naan or roti, which is like a combination. And it used to be a meal. Like my mother and my grandmother would put in so much effort to make that meal because you would also eat it like for Saturday afternoon, right? But it was so much fun. We still continue the tradition, by the way. My mom does. I'm not me, not so much because I'm doing so many things, and Indian food needs a lot of prep and a lot of love and a lot of
Yeah,
energy. My mom has been able to do that. Hopefully, I can in the future.
that's oh, I can't. I'm dying to go to India and sit at a Shabbat table in India. My son would love it because he loves Indian food. So,
You're always welcome.
yeah. So talk to me or tell us a little bit about the history of the Indian Jews. Like, how did we even get to India? Do you know how we got to India?
Okay, so there are a couple of different Indian Jewish communities, right? So I come from the Bene Israel community, and the story goes 7 men and 7 women were sailing, and the ship wrecked near the western coast of India. And when my ancestors landed in India, the Indian community, the Hindu community, welcomed them with open arms, and they never left. And that's how Bene Israelis ended up in India. Then you have the Baghdadi Jews who came from Iraq. They mostly came for trade. So if you've heard about the Sassoon family, David Sassoon, he's also known as the Rothschild of the East. He
Yeah.
was the one responsible, or his family was responsible to build schools, hospitals, libraries, and tons of synagogues. And he's why Mumbai is the commercial hub. He's the OG trader who made
Wow.
Mumbai what it is today. Then you have the Kochini Jews. If you go down south, Talia, where you went to Kochi, the Kochini Jews landed up there. It was like a mix. Some came for trade, some came to find refuge, and they ended up staying there. Um, and then these are like the three major, and you also have the Bene Menashe that are seen as the lost tribe, the sons of Menashe. Wow, there's so many different communities, but this is what it is. The Bene Israeli, I think, are the most in numbers right now in India. The Kochinis, like you said, actually, my friend's father is the one who takes care of the synagogue in Kochi. And I think there are a couple of other people, and maybe 15 people left in South India. Majority, they all live in Mumbai, which is like the commercial hub. And then you have Ahmedabad or Gujarat. Gujarat is a state, just to give you context, where Prime Minister Modi or the Indian Prime Minister belongs from. So it is what it is. And then we also, like, as Jews, I think when I speak to other Jews from the diaspora, I feel so grateful and lucky to belong to India because I grew up with so much love and acceptance. So the concept of anti-Semitism I only experienced when I started to make content online, but I never faced it in person in India. So it took me a while to actually accept, like, oh my gosh, like, I mean, I knew of it, but I experienced it firsthand when I actually landed in Israel online.
So what was that like for you?
It took me a while to, uh, I mean, I think I was taken aback. I didn't know what to say, what to feel, because my reality was so different when I lived in India. But then I was like, oh, but this is just for the Indian Jews, and I'm sure like other Jewish minorities living in Eastern countries, West or probably Middle East, not so much.
Yeah.
And then I started to dig deep into the history of anti-Semitism. Of course, as Indian Jews, we were taught about the Jewish history. We were always taught about the Holocaust and everything that went down in history for the Jews. But experiencing it firsthand is a total different uh, experience because it changes your life. It changes the way you look at the world and your point
It
of view.
does.
And then it definitely does. I think it's for the good because then that helped me kind of establish that, oh, why don't we bring Jewish education to the Indian audiences? Right? Because anti-Semitism is scary. It creeps in, and you never know when it's going to completely take over society. Now, India, I can't speak for other Eastern countries, but India, because I've lived there, I can say that majority of the people are not like they love Israel, but again, there is a gap in understanding where Jews come from and the history, da da da. If that's not taken care of, I can already see anti-Semitism creeping in, and it is going to be a challenge in the coming years.
Well, India has not been immune to the violence that's occurred around the world, certainly directed toward Jews. There was the Chabad synagogue in Mumbai
For
that
sure.
passed a number of years ago.
That was in
When
2008. That was actually backed by the Pakistani terrorist organization,
yeah,
where a bunch of terrorists came. They not intruded, but like they crept in Mumbai. They went to different places and they, took over. They went to the Taj Hotel and the Chabad house and uh yeah, the rabbi and his wife were unfortunately murdered, but baby Moshe was actually saved by his Indian nanny,
yeah,
and then he came back to Israel.
yes.
But yeah, I mean, India, that's what I talk about India and Israel is like we have shared challenges and shared values. When I talk about challenges, both India and Israel are located in such locations. We're surrounded by very friendly neighbors who come and say hello time and again in violent ways. So India is not the concept of terrorism and invasion is not foreign to India. So India understands what Israel goes through. So that's why it's easy to have a dialogue with the Indians because they understand what we go through.
So what's the relationship like? And this is a bit of a controversial question, but what's the relationship like between, say, the Muslim community in India and the Jewish community? Because certainly when I was in India, everybody was very friendly and you would see women in full niqab but felt totally open and free. I never felt any tension and I'm always with my magenta beads and my right and at that point with the dog tags and the everything. But is there any tension between those two communities?
I think now probably it has started to be, but as when I was growing up, we didn't feel any fear or sense of, insecurity. And I would like to give the credit to the Hindu community or the Indian culture that has been able to make all minorities living in India like from a different fabric.
Yeah.
So, but again, like I can't talk for everybody. There have been instances where there have not with the Jewish community, but in general, there have been violent instances. So back in the day, no. Today, questionable.
Mhm. So let's come on your journey to Israel. And so you said that at one point in the 80s, the Jewish communities in India kind of left en masse. So now are there pockets of Indian communities in Israel? Like do they congregate? And if so, where? What's that like?
Yes. So most Indian Jews live in southern Israel, mostly Ashdod, Beersheba, Dimona, Ramle, Lud. That's like the pocket where most Indian Jews are. But if you talk about Indian Jews who are like millennials and Gen Z like me, they're more in the Mirkaz or the center, which is like Tel Aviv, Ramat Gan, Givatayim, more like that, because there are more opportunities. If you want to date somebody, just you have a bigger dating pool in the center, or if you want to find jobs in tech, it's all in Tel Aviv.
Mhm.
So, and more people, or more and more youngsters from the Indian Jewish community are now coming to the center.
So do you find that the Indian community in Israel is insular, or do you find that it's assimilating and spreading out? And what the one thing I also want you to talk a little bit about, because I love the images, was we just had Holi last week, right? The Holi festival was last week, and you published on your Instagram some extraordinary images from celebrating Holi. Now, I want to know where that was. And how many of those people are actually Indian Jews, and how many of them are just Israeli, like Jews from Israel,
Uh-huh.
natively from Israel? And so if you can answer all of those questions at once, that would be great.
I'll try my best. So I'll answer your first question is okay, so okay. Now the challenge in India was like um I think the parents were worried like you would get assimilated with other non-Jews. Here. It's not a challenge because it doesn't matter if you're seeing somebody from Morocco or America or from Australia. I mean, you have a bigger uh Jewish pool here. So I definitely had restrictions in India. I'm like, no, 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 no. But here they're like, we don't care as long as he's Jewish. It doesn't matter if he's, if he's European, American, Australian, he's Jewish. So we're cool with it. So I think
That's
most,
that's a good distinction, because there's people will be like, as long as they're an Indian Jew, and right
yeah.
here it's like, as long as they're, as long as they're an Iraqi Jew, as long as, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some families can be very particular because I mean, Indian culture is also like very different. So, and if you're dating somebody who's European, they're so different. So
Yeah.
some people want to date Indian Jews only because it's just easier. You don't have to explain, the cultures, how the weddings go, la 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 la. But my parents were like, you know what? You're in Israel. You can date whoever you want as long as he's Jewish. I'm like, sababa. Okay, thank you very much.
Sababa.
Sababa. Now, coming to your second question about Holi. Okay, unfortunately, this year we didn't get to celebrate because of the war, but the Hindu festival of Holi and the Jewish festival of Purim coincide. So Holi is the festival of colors, and it celebrates the concept of good over evil, just like Purim. And of course, it's more like welcoming. What's the term? The season of spring, is it? Spring, right? Aviv
Yeah,
is spring.
right.
Yeah.
Right. Aviv, yeah.
Spring. And then the pictures and the videos that you saw were from last year. That was organized by the Indian Embassy in Israel in collaboration with the Tel Aviv municipality.
Very
And
nice.
they invited everybody, doesn't matter if you're Indian or American, or even if you're like a Christian or an Arab, doesn't matter. You're welcome to the event. You had a lot of colors. It was like a color throwing festival. You had henna artists. You can sit there and like do some henna art on your hands. We had sari draping. There was like a market where, there were vendors who were selling food and bangles and jhumkas, like those earrings and the tikas. Then we had professional Indian dancers who gave a performance. And then outside we had I think a group of Bollywood dancers who actually performed and you could
Wow.
join in and dance with them. So everybody was welcome. And I was really looking
Okay,
forward to
we're
the
going to
festival.
Israel for Holi next year.
Yeah, right. Talia and I
Like,
went, I'll tell you, Talia and I were
yeah.
just on Sunday, we went to a temple, a Hindu temple for Holi. We were invited by one of our Hindu friends. We have a lot of Hindu friends here.
That's awesome.
And it's my second year in a row going, and it's so beautiful.
It
I'm just
is.
mesmerized by the whole experience.
I absolutely had
So
FOMO because I saw all my friends in India celebrating Holi. And I couldn't. And I was like, okay, there's always next year. So let's hope for next year.
So this brings up an interesting concept that I recently ran into, which is I was talking with an Indian couple, and they're Muslim, but they're also Hindu. and they say that their faith is Muslim, but they're culturally Hindu. So now it sounds to me like that might be a concept that you, you would probably identify with. Is that the
Definitely.
case?
That is something that I also have in my description is like Jewish by religion and Desi by culture. Desi
Right.
is somebody who is like Indian, or you know how you call an Israeli a Sabra or a Sabar. So somebody who was born in India, you call them Desi. So definitely, it's because it's in the culture. Again, the fabric of the community is more, it's very like Hindu. So even if, I'll give you an example to just make it, to give you more context. So when you talk about weddings, Indian Jewish weddings are the best because it's a mix of uh, Indian traditions, and you also, have your Jewish traditions, like the Jewish tradition of, standing under the chuppah, and then you have a rabbi, doing the ceremony for you and stuff like that. But before that, we also have a henna ceremony, and we have a turmeric ceremony. It's called haldi, where you make a turmeric paste and you apply on the bride and the groom. That comes from the Hindu culture. So the Indian Jews adapted that culture, made it one of our own, and we also have the Jewish traditions, customs and traditions. And of course, you have the glass breaking, um, and also I think in ways of how you treat people or how your home is set up. For example, if you come to my parents' house, we're always told to keep, you don't enter with shoes in the house. You always remove them outside or to the side, because we believe like there's this energy that you carry, and you leave it outside when you're entering somebody's home.
Wow.
Stuff like
So my mother's Moroccan and my father
Yeah.
is European. He's Polish. And when we had weddings, we also had sort of this big mashup. And but we did henna as well. And I remember seeing henna for the first time. I think I was 12 years old, and I was so mesmerized by that. So I find it incredible how, different traditions amongst Jews actually travel the world. Right? And I remember my mother telling me that when they were in Israel, her parents weren't so keen on her marrying someone who wasn't Moroccan, right?
mm.
But anyways, it all ended up great and everybody loved each other. But I think that it's that preservation of culture that people are always after. And and in the end, I think, like in our family anyways, we just took both,
I
and
think
so
it's always good to have best of both,
yeah.
because I mean, I grew up in the best of both, so that's like it's internalized from me from day one. And I feel like you can take best of both and lead the best life. And then, I mean, it's everybody's choice. So, yeah.
So what are your thoughts right now about I mean we
Okay,
have the
but there's no collision. There's no collision, for example, just to stay on this theme for 1 second. Is there ever any kind of tension or collision between, say, the pantheon's the wrong word because it's Greek, but the pantheon of Hindu gods and our monotheism? Does that
Hmm,
ever create tension?
that's a great question. But surprisingly, no, because I'll tell you what. Okay, so we as Jews living in India always got invited to Hindu festivals, and Hindu festivals do involve idols and idol worship and stuff like that. But as Jews, Hindus always respected that. We were never forced or strongly recommended to bow in front of an idol. So let's say from the state I come from, Maharashtra, you have this festival called Ganesh Chaturthi. It is the elephant-headed god,
yeah.
and he's big in the state that I come from. And it is also one of my favorite festivals because of food and just the vibes. So, so the tradition is to go to people's houses who have Ganesha for a visit. So I went to my friends' houses, but I never bowed down. But I always took a box of sweets with me or flowers just to give it to them and be like, these are my blessings. And I would just go and have food and na na na. But I mean, that was our way to respect, and that was their way to respect my customs and traditions as well. But again, really depends. Some people do, some people don't. But I always wanted to make sure that I respected the facts, that I wanted to enjoy being Indian, but also wanted to respect the fact that I was Jewish.
Yeah,
And
I can
then
understand that.
and then as Indian Jews in India, we didn't eat beef. I mean, my parents, even today in Israel, they don't touch beef because,
Right.
you know,
Okay.
holy
Yeah.
cow is
Holy cow. Yeah.
holy, and there are religious sentiments to it, and I completely understand growing up in India. So that is something that Indian Jews don't do in India is eat beef.
So does it go both ways? So do Hindu Indian people, do they come to the synagogue when it's Purim time or Rosh Hashanah time? Like does it translate?
I mean, in my friend circle, it was always the case. They were always invited to, Rosh Hashanah dinners or parties. But of course, like in India, again, like if you come from a Jewish community, there's always like a fear of, oh, somebody is going to attack at any point in time just because it's happening all around the world. So there used to be high security around those festivals, and we were told, like, as much as possible, just because you don't want to attract any sort of attacks. But I mean, in our homes, I made it a point that my friends knew where I came from, invite them for Shabbat dinners and Rosh Hashanah, and then we would in India, like it's a tradition to okay, for Purim, we do mishloach manot, right? You send gifts and stuff like that. So we have Indian sweets that I would send to my friends, and make sure that, because it would be so, I wouldn't say boring. Like I had my Jewish friends, but most of my life, like 50% of my or 60% of my friend circle were non-Jews. So, and my parents always made it a point that I was, again, be a part of the society, but also respect the fact that you're Jewish, but not to a point where you're getting too reserved, where you're not even like don't understand what the other community celebrates or what their traditions are. So my parents made sure
There's
that,
a danger, right, of becoming too insulated.
yes, exactly. So we always tried to make I'm going to give credit to my parents. They always made sure that there was a balance. They didn't like hold back too much, but also like made sure they made us understand where the boundaries are for us. And I think we turned out to be okay, great people. So, yeah.
So how much of the Jewish community in India, though, has assimilated? Was there a lot of intermarriage and a lot of attrition in that regard?
I know a few people who have married to non-Jews, but I also see them in synagogues like for prayers and stuff like that for Rosh Hashanah. Like one of my cousins got married to a Hindu. So my brother-in-law is Hindu, but he knows Shema Israel, and he makes sure like they light candles on Shabbat. Again, it also depends on the family if they want to continue those traditions for their kids. But my cousin always makes sure that for Yom Kippur, she'll fast and she'll come to the synagogue. Uh, and for Rosh Hashanah, she's with her family. And, for major Chagim, but it's very personal, so you can never tell. There are some people who have completely, they say, gone off the derech. I know, like, just you're getting what I'm saying, right?
Yeah,
It's
they're
like
off the road. They're off
completely.
their track. Yeah.
But I believe everybody has their own journey. Some people have left and come back. Some people have completely left. Some people are like, oh, like 50-50. So it really depends who you're talking to.
So we need to shift, I think, the conversation over to what's happening right now in Israel because you're there and firsthand. Um, so what is the feeling about this war? Are people happy about it that this is finally happening and maybe it'll like ripping off a band-aid, it'll finally just be over? Are people angry that we're mixing in? Like, what is the general feeling in Israel?
I think the general feeling, I think at the beginning of the war was, okay, finally it's happening. Because, we heard news of, US and Israel like prepping, but we just didn't know when it was happening. And then we had conversations around Shabbat where we're like, let's just get over with because we're so done waiting. Now it is, I think, 2 weeks into the war, more than 2 weeks, and now we're like, okay, when is this getting over? Because we are tired, right? Because you have sirens going off at 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, random hours. People, get stuck while having a shower, and they have to come out in their bathrobe in
Oh
the
my
community
God.
shelters. Or people in general, I don't know if you've heard the sound of the alarms. They're very like traumatic in a way. They're very loud, very traumatic. I mean, for all good reasons, so that even if you're sleeping and if you're in deep sleep, it should wake you up. But it's happening so often that I personally have gotten a little bit of PSD from the noise because so sometimes if there's an ambulance driving by, I feel like I need to run because it just sounds very similar to the alarm sirens that go off in the city. I personally, my family was personally affected June of 2025 last year when we had the 12-day war with Iran. My parents' apartment was affected, and I was with them when it happened. We were
Like
sitting in the bomb
affected? Like
shelter.
how affected? Like,
They lost their apartment and they became
oh,
displaced.
oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
No worries. Thank you. They managed to find another apartment and we moved on from it, but like it's still very fresh because it happened June of 2025. And my sister was injured, and I can share footage with you if to give you more context or your audience more context. But they were displaced, and thank God the Israeli government took care of displaced families. They were put up in hotels, but it was still scary because I mean I saw it happen firsthand with my family, and I'm like, whatever they show in movies or on social media, the reality is so different. It is
Yeah.
so different because we live in it. This is our life right now. The first thing we do is check in on our friends on WhatsApp, asking if everybody's okay. Is everybody in shelters when we have the siren? Once the siren's over and we hear the impacts, like the boom, 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 when the Iron Dome is neutralizing these missiles, we're like, is everybody okay? Are your houses okay? Because sometimes when the ballistic missile falls, it might not fall on your apartment, but because it's so close, the entire neighborhood might get affected.
Yeah. Because they're huge. They're
Yeah, they're
huge
huge,
missiles.
they're heavy, and the impacts, like for example, to give you an example, we were sitting in the shelter, and the ballistic missile, when it fell in the parking lot, it was like right in front. The door flew on my sister, and I saw everything like fly and fall and shatter.
Wow.
And I went there for a few seconds because the impact was so loud. The
That
sound
is
wave.
so scary. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very scary. And that was also like another, because I'm like, so every time there's these sirens go off and I hear the impacts, I'm like, the flashbacks of the previous event keep coming back to me. So I'm also
Right.
like personally trying to work through it, but it is what it is. I've accepted the fact that if I live in this country, there will be, let's say, it's always going to be volatile in some way or the other. But does that mean that we run away? No. You find ways and you find tools to cope up with it and live your life.
Well, that's the obvious question is, after that happened, did your parents think about going back to India?
Actually, no. Everybody in India was like, oh my God, can you come back? And I'm like, how do you expect me to leave everything that I've built from scratch 6 years ago to leave everything and go back? Like, I understand temporarily, maybe. But permanently, no. Like I left my life in India to start my life from scratch in Israel, only to go back. Like it doesn't make sense. So the answer is no. Like everybody, actually, out of the four of us, my parents were the most optimistic. They were like,
Wow.
you know what? This is gonna pass. Hashem has given us a second chance, and everything's gonna be good. It's like, and everything's gonna be fine. So
But that's the Israeli way, right? Well, it's
yes,
the
that's what I.
Jewish way. We've been doing that for thousands of years.
Now you mentioned a little like a bit of PTSD. Um,
Yes.
are there resources available to you Like, is the state, because I suspect that you're not alone. I suspect that you're more the majority, right? So are there resources? How is the state handling that?
I think at the moment the state is focusing more on physical and psychological recovery. So anybody who's physically, let's say, injured, they're taken care of. And psychologically, the state like offers you, let's say, a psychologist to talk through the process. But it also depends, like if you want to have a private one or a government funded one. But again, like this is only so much I know because my family went through this, but I'm sure there are other facilities. For example, when my family was displaced, the government made sure they were given place to live. They were set up in like I was with them, so we were set up in a hotel, and food was taken care of. There was laundry, like we could do our own laundry and stuff like that. And we were told till the war ends, like you can live here. Then eventually, when the war ended, we were given like enough time to find a replacement for the apartment that was damaged.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they do take care.
Yeah, that's good.
Like any government, they have their shortcomings and they have things that they do very well. Ravi, is there anything else before we end today? Because this has been amazing. Is there anything else that you would like people in Canada and in the West in general to know about your life in Israel right now or life as an Indian Jew?
Wow. Wow. You asked me so many questions at the same time. So, I think for everybody who is now watching this episode or listening to this one, I want to say that we might be the smallest Jewish minority in the world, but we are one of the coolest. You're always welcome to come to Israel and meet me and the community. Or if you feel like you want to experience the Indian Jewish culture firsthand, go to India. It is a beautiful country. I know for the West, it might be the wild, wild East, but talk to me because I will tell you exactly where to begin. And then, of course, the easy way to go is to either get in touch with Chabad in India because if you want to, a Jewish what do you say, center point to be in contact with and have kosher food. By the way, you get kosher food. I grew up with kosher food in India, so just putting it out there. And I just want to say that yeah, Indian Jews are amazing. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to actually tell my story and our story. And there's so much more to talk about, but maybe for episode two.
Yeah, oh, I'd love to have you back. I was so excited for this. I was so excited for this podcast.
True.
Oh my gosh.
I also just want to tell our audience if anybody wants a recipe for great butterless butter chicken, Parav butter chicken, I will hook you up.
I just use coconut.
Yes.
I use coconut
I use
milk
coconut
instead.
milk. Yeah,
Yeah,
use coconut milk. It's
yeah.
really
Yes.
good.
And it's
My mother makes
delicious.
it too.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. And I hope that you keep safe during this time and I don't know. I don't even know what to say because you're just living it and we're all watching. So I hope that it's over soon and I hope that you and your family are safe.
And we
And
are,
again, I really appreciate this. Shabbat Shalom.
we
Shabbat
are
shalom.
absolutely in awe of your family's resilience. So Shabbat Shalom. Keep living it. Keep living your dream and following your bliss. And I mean, with this incredible resilience and
Thank you so
strength.
much. Amen to
Extraordinary.
everything you said. And I hope we can we'll have the opportunity. I'll have the opportunity to meet the other Revi and Talia in person.
Yes,
And I've
love that.
hopefully also
Absolutely love
visit
that.
Canada someday. It's on
Yeah.
my list. I've never been to Canada, by the way.
Oh,
So
not right now. Just wait a bit before you come here.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everyone. I'm totally in love with her.
Oh my God, what an extraordinary woman.
I'm
I
totally in love. Like I am
love
like when I go to Israel, I'm having coffee with her.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I
All
mean,
right.
I'm inviting myself to her family's house for Shabbos.
Yeah. So I have to,
I want to
unfortunately.
eat the curry. I love Indian
I
food.
agree.
I want
Yeah.
to eat the curry. Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
want to meet these people who can move to Israel 6 years ago right? And experienced two wars, have their apartment demolished, and
Yeah.
loved their life in India, but still decided to move to Israel and have no interest in going back
Yeah,
because
it's really
now they're
remarkable.
Israeli.
But I think that's the story of all people that
Yeah,
make Aliyah to Israel. Like there are people that came from war-torn countries and a lot of terrible things, and they go to Israel, and now they're experiencing, and they don't want to leave. It's their home. But we
yeah,
have to pivot because
yeah,
it's been a brutal week, and a
yes,
lot of bad things have happened this week. And
yeah,
I think we need to very briefly, at least, kind of have like a bit of a rapid fire newsreel. So yesterday was Detroit, Michigan.
yes.
And I was telling you earlier that it reminded me because the I'm gonna call her like him like the attempted bomber, right? He
Mhm.
drove his car into a synagogue where there is a I think it's a preschool
Yeah, a
with the
daycare.
intention of
Yeah.
blowing everything up, and thank God was stopped. And it reminded me of that moment when I heard about Columbine and I went running to my kids' preschool to grab my children and take them home, even though I was in a different country. And I gotta wonder, and we have to wonder what every Jewish person, our kids are older, but what are all the Jews feeling all over the world yesterday, today, when their children are going to a synagogue or a Jewish school? I don't care if your kid's in kindergarten or in high school. That must have been the most terrifying thing for all the Jews. Like,
Yeah. Look, I felt two things. Number one, there have been times in the last 2.5 years that I have kept my kids home from school. My kids don't even go to a Jewish school. And the reason I've kept them home is because, as let's say, a minority of Jews in their school, they would be logical targets. So I've kept them home on more than one occasion. Number one. The other thing I felt was if you've never had faith in God before, when you see such a calamitous thing happen and nobody gets hurt, then I think like hand of God to me, hand of God, that Baruch Hashem,
yeah,
none
it
of
was a
those
total
children,
miracle.
none of those children were injured. I mean, Baruch Hashem. But at the same time, but then I catch up with myself and I think, no, but at the same time, you now have an entire community of Jews who are completely terrorized, right? And who are terrified because that's the point of terror, is to terrify a whole community. And now you have whole communities of Jews around the world who are absolutely terrified. And we certainly are. I mean, we've got Al-Quds Day about to show up in our city tomorrow, and we are absolutely terrified.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. So tomorrow, with Al Quds Day coming, I think the concept of terror, and we've said this before, and we've posted about this before. Terror is not just blowing things up. Terror is convincing people you're going to blow things up and
Right.
making them change their lifestyle and making them fear, right? To cause terror to a person is not just a physical thing, it's a mental thing. And with Al Quds Day coming tomorrow, with all of these shootings over the last, 2 weeks, and this awful it's not just in Israel happened in Israel it happened. Where's the other one in Australia? Where there was another shooting
No, in Norway, wasn't it
in
Norway?
Norway. So, so yeah, and there was another like a Molotov cocktail in New York. Like there's just so much going on,
Yeah,
right?
never
And it's
mind the,
happening everywhere
the
and
schools.
more often.
Right. And we've had our own shul shootings. We've had
Yeah.
the American consulate. Here's the crazy illustration of this. It's my daughter's bat mitzvah tomorrow. Okay. It's basically her birthday party. I have somebody coming into the building to sweep it for bombs
Oh
before
my
the people
God,
show
Talia.
up. Okay. Why? This wasn't my idea. Wasn't my idea, right? But I spoke to Aaron at Beirut and he said, I'm going to come before the people come and I'm going to sweep the building. I have two security guards who are going to be providing security for my daughter's bar mitzvah. Bar mitzvah.
It's
It's a
fucking
birthday
disgusting.
party for a 12-year-old needs security in the city of Toronto.
I hate it. I hate it. And
It's
I blame the
revolting.
government and I blame blame
Blame the
everybody who's
city.
got a position that the taxpayers pay for. The counselors, the mayor, I mean, except for the good counselors that we love, the mayor, like all the people, and
Yeah, the
they
provincial
like
government.
Carney, like I hate them all right now
Yeah.
because they have allowed this environment of terror to happen to us because they have not stood up against it. And now, okay, now some people are standing up. Chow and Demke made a video last week. Good for them. But for 2.5 years, nobody said anything. It took shootings. It took shootings into synagogues and the U.S. consulate for some of our officials to finally get on a mic and finally stand up for us.
Okay, but so fucking what? They got on the mic. So what? So they can give us their thoughts and their prayers. Okay, that's very generous. But what's the actual outcome? So that there's going to be what, maybe two or three more cops at Al Quds Day? We're about to have a terror march through downtown Toronto. If the mayor really wanted to stop the terror in the city, she would be saying, just like they did in the UK, no terror marches in my city. I'm not going to have it.
Yeah, no, the whole
No
thing should be
more.
canceled.
But she
It's
doesn't.
an
Instead, she's like,
IRGC.
she said it to our faces, Revy, last weekend. Oh, charter rights of, I'm sorry. So the charter rights of the terrorists, right, to terrorize are more important and a higher priority than the rights of Canadian citizens to not, and Toronto citizens to not be terrorized.
Yeah, yeah.
She literally said it to our
Yeah, she
faces.
did. She did say that to us. We saw her
Yeah.
and that's what she said to us. She said, I mean, I think she was honestly like I don't know, for some reason I felt like she was trying to be helpful in her way. I did. I actually did feel like she and I don't like, people know what I think of her. But I did actually feel like she felt bad for us and I did actually
It
feel
made me
like she
swear.
was trying to help us, but she can't. Like I think, I just don't think she's capable of helping us. And
Like
that's
capable
her.
because she's not a capable human being.
Yeah.
She's absolutely capable. She can 100% do it.
I don't think uh I don't think she has autonomy that way.
If
I
she
think
gave
her
a shit,
strings are pulled.
if she gave a shit, she would be pulling Amber Rowe, whatever her name is, Amber, whatever her name is, off the Toronto Police Services Board. She would be sticking herself on it, and she
Yeah.
would be saying, "This is my policy for my city."
Yeah. She's not a strong person,
No,
right?
but so then why the hell is she our mayor?
Because people
This is like,
voted for her. I don't know. She won't be soon enough. Brad will hopefully be our mayor sooner than
well,
I'm
so
not
and what's and
plug Brad
Brad.
Bradford.
Right. So Brad Bradford has spent the last few days, right? Ever since, we gave him a little bit of a kick in the tuchus,
You
and
did that. You did that.
he spent the last few days, you know, pulling together our ally counselors in the city, James Pasternak and Mike Cole, and I think also hopefully Rachel Turnus Lynn, to go to the solicitor of the city and say we need an injunction against this Al Quds Day. This is cuckoo bananas.
Yeah, so I think
Let's
that
hope they're
they're
successful.
going to try to stop the march. But
Yeah,
anyway, we'll see. By the time this airs, we'll see
yeah,
what has
yeah,
happened.
yeah.
But
We'll follow up.
yeah, and we'll do a follow-up
Yeah,
next week. But it's
yeah,
back to the terror. So I'm
yeah,
just going to take it full circle because we are over an hour now. But
yeah,
what I want to say is really that it was a breath of fresh air to learn about Jews from other places, and I think we are going to try to keep that up. We're going to try to find more,
yeah,
and and it's exciting. Like it's exciting to me to meet and learn about of my brothers and sisters from all over the world.
yeah.
So everyone have a great week, and we're gonna sign
Well,
off now.
yeah,
And hopefully by the time this airs, we get good news about Al Quds Day, and and we'll see what happens next week. All right,
yeah. Well,
sit tight. Shabbat shalom, Talia.
Shabbat shalom.